potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and I am so excited to have Jeff Timmons on the show. If you don't know his name already, you should. He is from 98 Degrees. He's a TV and music producer. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So the first thing I want to bring up, though, is that you had a ton of scheduled tours before all this craziness hit. How do you deal with the uncertainty of going, oh, now I have absolutely nothing to do this summer because I had a whole bunch of other things planned?
Well, look, I've had plenty of time to think about it the last 3 or 4 months. 98 Degrees took a long break, an 11-year break, and then, we all kind of got the bug and wanted to see if we could go back on tour and if our fans would be there for us. So, 2013, we went on this huge tour. It was a great success. I mean, we were touring with Boyz II Men and New Kids on the Block, which is, those are two legendary groups in their own respect. And we found out that our fans were still there for us and we loved it. So we've been touring nonstop. And that's been a core part of our business. As you know, the music business has changed since we were out and we were really prolific in the late 90s, early 2000s when people sold tons of CDs and music was really a big thing for part of your business. So, now it's really kind of still all about touring for us. I mean, and we've tried to get back into the studio a little bit. We've become more familiar with some new business models with that, and some of the old models that we were used to are out the door. But a core part of our business is touring, the majority of it. So, we've been touring in a very prolific manner for the last 7 years, and we had probably 30, 40 dates on the books for this year alone. And, unfortunately, this pandemic kind of took everybody by storm, not just us, everybody on the planet. So, certainly for us, we're lucky enough that our fans aren't going anywhere. They've been supporting us since we've come back. They've been with us through the years, even when we were gone. So, moving it back for us isn't that tough. But in the meantime, you got to find a way to be creative, and you want to still generate an income and find a way to make some money and keep creative and keep your business going and keep your brand going. So, we've had to pivot, and a lot of that's been, recording in the studio, coming up with some TV and reality show pitches, which I started to get into in the last few years, and just keep the brain juices going and try and keep some business going for yourself.
Yeah, well, when you have to be there on tour in order to make that sort of money, how have you gone through all the different business models? Because you said that the landscape is ever changing. How do you pick which one that you want to actually start diving more into?
Well, you just have to research where you fit in. And for us, we can still record. Fortunately for us, our vocals haven't gone anywhere. In fact, we've been sort of getting better throughout the years. After you're in it for this long, you can't help but hopefully get better. So, we have that option to record. So we've been exploring those opportunities, which maybe is a good thing. Our fans have been calling for new music for a long time. And for us, we've been disenfranchised with the business model with regards to selling music. It's never been that great for us. We sold upwards of 15 million records now and never really reaped the rewards of those sales. It was always labels or, production companies, and that hasn't been efficient. But now with technology, you have the ability to control your destiny in that respect. Put out your own music. I have a home studio that can pretty much create anything that a big, $1 million studio can with all the bells and whistles because of technology, because of experience. So, we've been exploring that, and with the streaming services, you don't have to go and spend $1 million on a full-length album anymore. You can do singles one at a time or EPs, or there's a number of different things we're exploring. That from merchandising, and now all these virtual fan experiences that have come into light now that the pandemic's sort of taken everybody by storm, where you can do these virtual meet and greets and you can do these virtual concerts. And we haven't really tapped into that because we know that everybody at this point in time has been financially hurt by this. So the last thing we want to do is go out there and exploit our fans with an experience that might not be polished or might not be, that great for them and that great of an experience for them. So we've been very careful about how we're approaching those different things.
Oh, I'm excited to see what you come out with that. But what we assume after 15 million records and fame that you would have made a lot of money from those records, and that's not normally what happens. So the fame definitely helps, I'm sure, with anything else that you're launching beforehand. How did you deal with that, though, dealing with like, hey, everybody knows my name, except the record labels have a lot of the money?
Well, look, that's right. I mean, and that's a big misconception. And now a lot of information's out there about how that works. I mean, look, almost every artist has gone through what we've gone through, unless they've had a tremendous management team or a great team behind them that knows the business, because you learn as you go along. And with us, it was a competitive landscape. So, we were compared to groups like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, which were selling 100 million records. And thankfully, we're lumped into those groups because they're extraordinary groups and great talent and good friends of ours, right? But at the same time, they had different teams than we did, and a lot of people don't know that every flight that you take, every piece of wardrobe that you put on, every single thing that the label forks out for you to get done, they recoup that. And then, look, there's tricky accounting with regards to that. So unless you're an accountant at 20 some years old, while you're taking the stage and, busy on the road and doing TV and radio promos and all this stuff that you're swamped with work-wise, unless you're sitting down and looking at the books every night, you're going to tons of things are going to fall through the cracks and go to the people that probably shouldn't be getting them. So it's called recoupment. So you literally have to sell, when you have $1 million video, which they used to cost back in the day to create these cinematic videos, which again, now you can do for $20,000, spending $1 million on those, you got to sell a couple of million records to pay back a video from your cut. So, it is a tough lesson to learn, but looking back and being 25 plus years later in the business and being fortunate to still be around, I wouldn't trade the experiences for anything. I mean, you learn a lot, and with that knowledge, I can sort of impart everything I learned on up and coming artists that I'm friends with or that I believe in. So they might not have to go through the valleys; they can just kind of experience the peaks of all those things. But good lessons learned about business, and it makes you focus on just the business rather than, hey, I look great, I'm on stage, I'm famous. You have to learn, it's called the music business, and you have to learn the business for a reason.
Well, and even regular old business owners aren't looking at their accounting half the time anyway, right? Even though we know that we're supposed to when you're going through it. But when you actually look at the evolution, 25 years, but also tons of different technology that has come out. So you've had to readapt, and it's really cool to hear you talk about sort of the virtual side of things. How do you decide what you go after?
Well, look, I mean, streaming is where it's at, right? Well, you look at the artist cut of streaming, and I think someone was giving me the numbers the other day. I mean, I think we're getting about 1.5 million, 2 million unique streams on our channel on Spotify a month, but, we didn't even know those channels existed. So the labels were putting those channels into place, and, we're going to backtrack on those accountings too. But, an artist, you really don't get a whole lot from streams. Your cut is like 0.006 cents per stream, which, in 1.5 million streams, you do the math, it's about 10 grand. You split that with 5 ways if you have a manager, and then, you're making that from the stream. But there's still several streaming services. So, but, going after those things, to get to your point, it's a good way to keep your brand out there. Obviously, it's convenient for fans and for consumers to go right to streaming, to have the apps on their phones or their laptops or their desktop computer, and it's readily available for them. But, one of the good things about it is after you're around for so long, at some point your master recordings revert back to the artist. So, there is a chance that, and we're looking into that now, that we do own our masters now. So we would own the majority of those royalties. And so that's a big chunk of business that didn't exist when we were out. So we wouldn't know to look for it. But, after you do some research and you go, oh, how's this breaking down? And, our masters should have reverted to us in 2015 after, 15 years of being owned by the label. But that's a serious chunk for an artist and another revenue stream for them. But, for us, it's a good way to get out to your fans. And to your point, we should utilize that by creating some new music, because now we don't have to go to a label. We can sit in the studio anywhere, create the songs ourselves, put it right into the system, own those masters, and utilize that. And it's a good way to be creative and get back out to our fans.
Yeah, so much more autonomy now because of the technology that we have. But tell me a little bit about fame, because everybody and their brother right now wants to be an internet famous something or other, right? And I know there's downsides to it also. If you could sort of tell me about internet trolls, how you're handling it, how your friends handle it. It just seems like a thing that everyone seems to grasp at and really, really want, but I don't think they understand the full picture of it.
Well, and look, I didn't understand the full picture of it, too, when I was a 21-year-old college kid trying to meet girls by singing songs. I wanted to be famous and be rich and all that stuff, and you don't really have the perspective, and I'm from a small town in Ohio, so, there's nothing to do except, watch TV at that time. There was no real internet, and you didn't have all these things at your disposal. So you had the cable channels, and you really revere these celebrities and put them up on a pedestal and want to be like that. And now you have Instagram and Twitter and all these different streaming or different platforms, social media platforms, where people become famous overnight, right? Virally famous. TikTok now is the one that's super prolific. My 8-year-old daughter wants to be TikTok famous. I'm like, slow down.
My 11-year-old does too. I'm like, oh goodness, I'm doing the dances at a birthday party. I'm like, oh, this is not me. That's not good.
I just did my first one the other day and failed miserably at it. So
I saw that.
As many people watched it because it was a disaster as they would because it would be good. But, look, it isn't, I love the perks of having fame. The benefits outweigh the negative parts of it, but it isn't all that great at times. Your personal life is scrutinized. You now, especially with how social media is just right there. Internet trolls, you could say. I mean, back in the day, it was chat room trolls or just stalkers. In-person stalkers, right?
Yes.
You're going to have a downside anytime you're in the public eye and you want the light shining on you or focused on you. There are going to be some negative repercussions that you don't expect or don't understand or aren't prepared for it. Certainly that happened throughout my lifetime in this 20 plus years of having some sort of fame. But again, I mean, you'll have celebrities say, oh, I wish I wasn't famous. It's for the art. Look, everybody secretly likes being famous. They want the attention. There's a certain egotistical part of you, the creative part, egotistical part that wants your art to be seen and appreciated, right? But meant to feel special. But it's all about how you're grounded. I come from a very small town in Ohio. And, look, if I got out of control ego-wise, my parents would kick my butt. So, we're raised in a certain blue-collar way that we're meant to respect and revere all of this stuff that comes along with being able to do music and be creative for a living. So it's always meant to be kept in perspective. And for us, it was, we had come out and we didn't have quite the PR machine that some of these other groups we were compared to did. And we were signed to Motown, which is a predominantly historically urban label, and we're one of the only white groups out there. And so they didn't quite know what to do with this PR-wise and marketing-wise. So we had to get out there, do a lot of grassroots promotion, and like, here we are, getting into Winnebago, plaster our pictures on the sides and drive up into towns and say, hey, take a look at us, we're here too. And so for that, it really put things in perspective for us. When we had a top 10 single on the radio and people didn't know who we were, and we're going and buying our own CDs, trying to, get on the charts and all that stuff. And then, look, overnight, we're on Total Request Live, which was a big MTV show, staple MTV show in the late 90s and early 2000s. Overnight, all of a sudden, we couldn't get out of our tour bus, so we knew that it wasn't real. Okay, so 2 days later, we're trying to get people to recognize. Before we're trying to get people to recognize 2 days later, we can't get out of our tour bus, and you realize, look, this isn't real. So you take it in stride. You try to, at the end of the day, reflect on what's real, what's not, what you need to do to work harder, how you can get better for your fans and put a better product out there for them, and try to enjoy the ride, which in our landscape, in any business, it's always competitive, but the entertainment business is fickle and very competitive. So for us, it was a tremendous amount of pressure to make sure we could stay on top and keep ourselves going and stay relevant. So, looking back, I certainly wish we would have enjoyed it as much as we do now. We're having a blast now. I mean, we're much older and hopefully wiser. So, but it was an interesting time for us. And again, fame is cool. Certainly has amazing perks to it. It's been a great ride, but it does have some things that will let you down with regards to your personal life and being scrutinized and ridiculed publicly about the way you look. You got to make sure you're looking great at all times, and you can't say anything wrong. You can't be a human being and express an opinion and be wrong. You have to make sure you're measured and careful about what you say. But at the same time, then you get scrutinized if people don't feel like you're being honest and forthright and genuine. So it is a tough predicament, but naturally, I think, if you're being true to yourself, it might sound corny, true to yourself, true to what your heart says, and being a genuine person, that'll sort of show through all the other BS out there.
Well, and how internally do you handle it? Because that's the other thing, too. It's not like you have this armor that you're like, everything bounces off and it's not a big deal. Nothing sort of gets in. How do you handle internally when something like really goes wrong or is really, really hits the core, right?
Well, it's historically known that creatives are sensitive. Right. I mean, that's why they're alcoholics and they use drugs and they get depressed. And, you see all these artists right now coming out and saying, oh, I have self-image problems. And that just goes with that part of your brain that's active in the creative side. And not that people that aren't creative don't experience it, but if you look through the test of the time of all these artists and they're historically known for being sensitive. So while artists say, well, I don't pay attention to it. No, they do. They look at it, and sometimes it hits the core a little bit more. But you have to put things into perspective that a lot of times people who are outside looking in, and they might be envious because they want to be famous, or maybe didn't get the opportunity to be famous to take the chance, or maybe were too scared to take the chance. So they have a certain either conscious or subconscious negative self-image or just negative preconceived idea about you and what you think of yourself because you went out there and you're on TV. But I can assure you that most celebrities, if not all celebrities, are in tune with their feelings and are cognizant of what's going on in the trolls and aware of it. But you have to do really sort of go, hey, look, they don't know me. They don't know anything about me. And if they knew me and met me in person and got to hang out with me or have a beer or watch a show together or just kick it and have a conversation, and they would understand that I'm just a normal person. And then, I can't tell you how many times I'll go into a meeting with executives that have these preconceived ideas about how I'm going to behave, or I'll meet them for dinner. And then after a couple of drinks, they're like, wow, you're kind of cool. And I'm like, well, gee, thanks. I'm actually not. I just, I should be relatable. And so that's what happens. And so there is sort of a protocol and armor that you put up because you're careful and measured because people are out to, again, either consciously or a lot of times subconsciously, they attack you and they say things that are just so outlandish. That's what's very interesting to me. People will say the craziest things and you just go, you know what? They're either nervous or they don't know me or, give them a chance. You want them to give you a chance, give them a chance. And then, look, the walls come down. You have a conversation like two normal human beings getting to know each other, understand each other, hopefully do business with each other, have a good exchange. And then you go from there.
That's all perspective, right? And what we say to ourselves internally. But are you ever scared at taking a leap? Like you switched over to executive TV producer and a bunch of different things and new sort of modalities. Like there's scaredness, I'm assuming, that comes in for any new project.
Well, look, there's always part of the drive is fear of failure, right? But I'm never scared to take a risk. Every time I've taken a risk and really gone for it, fortunately, and look, I mean, there could be some pitfalls in between that tell you everything in the universe is pointing in a different direction. You need to stop. But you have this drive or this goal in there that goes, man, I can't be wrong. I know this is going to work. And every time you take those risks, you have to make sure they make sense. You can't go out there and gamble your family's life savings away if you have, 5 children like I have and a wife that I need to provide for. But, risks with regards to your image or, tarnishing your brand by doing something outside of the box or taking a chance. Every time I've tried that, it's ended up to be a success in some respect, whether a financial success, a commercial success, or a spiritual and psychological success. So I'm all about taking risks. I have no fear with regards to taking risks. Definitely have a fear of failure. I wake up, I'm like, I've had success. Now what's the next level? And then what's the next level? And what's the new version of yourself? I don't ever compare myself to another person. I don't compare my business to other businesses. I compare myself to what I hold in regards to my image of myself, which is a pretty scrutinized self-image. But, that's how I operate. Some people would say it's not healthy. Other people would say it's very healthy. It depends on who you ask. But for me, it's the fear of failure is there, but the fear of taking a risk, never.
So it sounds like you've always been like that risky side where you're willing to do it. How do you mitigate the risk of failure? So if you go, this doesn't feel like this is going very well, how do you sort of back up and stop yourself internally from spiraling when it seems like things are going down?
Well, look, I think as you have more of these failures, and certainly I've had way more failures than successes, right? But after you start to see a dynamic and a certain, thing that's going in a certain direction. In the past, I ride it all the way out, right? Even to your detriment, you waste your resources and your energy writing it out. And that would be true if that's what you wholeheartedly believe in, and but as you see things starting to go down, you start to go, okay, let me look at all of the protocols, all of the stimuli out there, all of the things that are pointing in a certain direction, and what can I change in the process? And then maybe you take it in a different direction. So you're learning more about different things and different actions you can take in the process to maybe, cure this or change it or take it in a different direction, not necessarily bail on it. But, you start to, be a little bit more open, in tune, a little more intuitive and less stubborn. Take your ego out and put on some of your logic. But certainly that self-belief and that confidence, those intangibles mean a lot. They end up helping you ride the storm sometimes to success. I mean, with my group, everybody told me to quit. I was from a small town. They're like, you're crazy, you're dumb, it's ridiculous. I was the laughing stock of my town. It's a football town, and I'm here going to be a singer in LA, and my original group quit, and I'm still out there. And they're like, oh, this is going to be, I can't wait till he comes home and we can just, rib him about this. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick it out. And fortunately for me, things changed. I met the right guys. We were in the right situations. We took the proper risks and chances, and it resulted in, for us, great success. So that was one where I just kind of said, I'm determined. I'm going to find a way to work harder and smarter. And then it turned out to be good.
Do you ever, because there's so many successes and failures, right? And sort of when you try and weigh them together, was there any more like intuitive knowing for one or the other, or do they seem really similar? Is there any predictability? I know there isn't, but you know what I mean? Is there anything that was correlated between success and failure for your?
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Because, when I was starting my group and they were telling me to quit, my other guys quit, and then I was going to get a new group, and I'm in LA by myself. I had this feeling that, man, I'm determined. I don't want to quit this. But then I've had these other situations when, for example, when music started to change and the boy bands and the pop music started to go down in the early 2000s, and it was back to rock and hip hop, more hip hop, and they wanted to phase out that pop explosion. And I was determined to put out a record. And here, the music industry did not want to hear any of my music. They were overseeing us on TV every day for 5 years. And it was just like, it's an uphill battle. I should have pivoted and gone straight to working on music for other people or doing behind the scenes thing. But I was determined to go out there and be a solo artist. And look, the climate wasn't right. They just didn't want, I couldn't get a label to even listen to my music, let alone sign me or anything like that. So yeah, I kind of knew it was an uphill battle, and I was beating down some doors. And really, it would have only taken one person to say yes, but at that point in time, nobody was saying yes to even listening to the stuff. So, back reflecting on it, now look, I sat in the studio and learned how to produce music on my own. So I see a positive. It was a good learning experience, taught me how to do things behind the scenes, which translated into many other projects for me that were great. But it wasn't the commercial solo success that I was hoping for or expecting. So, but again, I was determined to do it the same I was determined to do it with the group. So it was that fine line. But you have that gut instinct that says, man, you should probably pivot and go somewhere else. Use your resources, use the relationships you have to sort of migrate into another business till it all changes around. Now, ironically, this many years later, it doesn't matter how old you were. They were telling me I was too old in 2002. And here, almost 20 years later, it doesn't matter how old you are now. You have a platform, you can put it out yourself, you have a fan base, you can create your own music videos. So it's strange how it's changed, and I'm happy it has. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's just that hunch or that gut instinct that you sometimes follow or you sometimes ignore, but you should always sort of pay attention to that intuition or that sort of heartfelt solar plexus sort of vibe that you're getting out there. You should pay attention to it.
Well, I love that you can do a really good job of this crazy hustle is what it sounds like, right? But also really pair it with the creativity. How do you sort of balance? I know balance isn't the right word, but how do they balance that stuff?
That is a very good point, because there's never a point in time when you don't hustle. So even if you see the most prolific artists out there, let's say Mariah Carey, who's a legend, one of the most highest selling female artists of all times, if not the highest, she's always hustling. Britney's always hustling. They're always finding a way. Madonna, there's in her 60s now, reinventing and hustling and finding a way to morph into something else or reactivate, re-energize her fan base, stay creative herself. Lady Gaga hustles. Look, she's doing movies. She's doing music scores. She's collaborating with Tony Bennett on a classics album. I mean, the hustle is always there. And people say, oh, this person made it. They're resting on their laurels. It doesn't happen. I mean, those people, whether you see it or it's behind the scenes, they're always working hard, finding a way to stay relevant in such a competitive landscape. So there is a balance, because you can burn yourself out on the business side, and then you can't sit here late at night and can pluck on the keys and get on, the digital audio workstations and compose music. So you have to find a way to do it. I mean, I think it's just, again, that passion that gives you that extra energy, that boost where you can work, 18 to 19 to 20 hours a day, or take naps of 30 minutes throughout, and then get re-energized and find a way to do both. But you must do both. You have to learn the business. You can never stop hustling. You cannot depend on a team of people that are working for you, because even if they're making money by working for you, and they do care, nobody cares about your project and your art more than you. It just doesn't happen.
Well, and then on that side of the fence, waiting for creativity. It doesn't sound like you wait for creativity and go, right? Do you have a routine? Are you making time for it? How does that work?
Well, for me, it just it just happens. So I can be, and it's usually when you're doing something that's a reflex, like driving or washing the dishes. It's then you get these influx of ideas. And so when that happens, I always have my studio on. So, or I have, my phone with the recorder in it. So I'll sit there and I'll sing some lyrics or sing a bass line. There is no rhyme or reason to any of it. I think during this quarantine, I've done 30, 40 tracks during the quarantine. So it's like either one every 2 or 3 days. Just always writing, always an influx. And, the scary part, when you're creative, and you are creative with whatever you're doing, but with music, you worry about the idea. People always worry about, is this going to be my last idea? And after a while, you get comfortable with knowing it's not going to be your last idea. And for me, fortunately, I don't have creative block or writer's block or producer's block. There's so many tools at your disposal now, and so many different sounds available, that anything, there could be a loop or a certain keystroke or riff you're playing, or guitar riff you hear, or lyric that can spark a whole song. So it's just a matter of finding the time to do that. With me, I've got a lot of kids, and I like to spend time with them and my wife. So I usually hang out with them during the day. And my routine, if there is one, it's probably from midnight to 6 or 7 in the morning. That's when I get, during the midnight hours, that's when I'll work and I'll knock out some music. And then I'll sleep from then till 7 or 8 to 10 or 7, 8 to 11. Then I'll get up and then hang out all day and then do it again. But sometimes during the day, I'll have to say, look, I got to get this idea. Give me 15 minutes to go at least scratch something down. It's weird because there is no rhyme or reason, but that's what's cool about it.
Going with the flow as much as you possibly can. I send out shower notepads to all my clients, because I always feel like everybody gets ideas when they don't have anything in front of them. But how, it's interesting because everyone's talking about morning routine. I love that you are a night owl and that you can sort of do that. But how do you determine what is a good idea, quote unquote, and that was just something that's not very good anymore, right? Because it just is a flow.
That's right. It is a flow. And my whole thing is, even if it's not a good idea, go with the flow, right? So sometimes I'll sit there and scratch something out all night long, and I'll think it's the best thing ever. I mean, you always think it's the best. This is the best song ever. Oh, this is amazing. I can't wait to see what soundtrack this goes on, or who I place this with. And then, you get a little sleep and you go back and go, well. But it's like exercising, right? Sometimes you go to the gym and you have to go, and you force yourself in there, but you get a couple sets in. It's not your best workout, but you just did it as a routine. You worked your muscles a little bit. For me, it's working the muscles. So the idea might not be that great, but you're learning something with these tools that you have. And for producers, they have all these digital audio workstations like Pro Tools and Logic, and they're like basically different languages. But the routine of going in and creating a song gets you better at learning how to do just the technical part. So as an engineer, I learned some new engineering. Now, the music might not be great, and the lyrics or the melodies or the sounds, but I learned how to use the tools to create could be better, create the music better next time. So I always find a positive in it.
Yeah, process versus outcome. But were you always like that? Were you always like, ooh, it's part of the process. I know I'm learning, I'm doing this stuff. Or you're like, I need to get something good, like now. Have you ever pushed yourself like that?
I mean, certainly you put that pressure on you. You want to have the best stuff now. So it's a little bit of both. I think I learned more about not forcing it. As you get older, you just get a little more relaxed about stuff. Certainly have the drive, certainly obsessed with being great and having success and making cool stuff. But also you got to, look, the universe or God or whatever you want to call it gives you the muse, right? And the muse comes when it comes. You can't force it into existence, but you can, in the process, get a little better at some of the technical stuff on the other side of it. Some of the disciplines can be better. As far as discipline, always been disciplined. So, whether it be working out or trying to get in shape, like I said, I was from a football town, so get in shape for football. As you can see, I'm not the biggest guy, so my options weren't too great to be a professional football player, which everybody in my town dreams of being. But, okay, how can I train better? What can I do? What person can I read about that had success? And so I can model or take some of the things that they did. So that's always been in my DNA to try to get better. And again, for myself, to get the best out of what I got here, and it's not the greatest machinery on the planet, but, whatever I can do to get better or hone in my skills or learn something new, to become a better person.
Well, your perseverance is so apparent, but when everybody's listening right now during quarantine craziness, this is coming out a little bit later, but everybody's sort of stuck in a bit of a rut with everything going on anyway. Do you have any tips for perseverance for people right now?
Yeah, I think, look, this is a tremendous test of faith with everything that's going on. I mean, you have the protests, which are absolutely a necessity right now. Then you compare that with riots, which are also happening. And then, of course, COVID and the pandemic has all that it's overwhelming for everybody. There's nobody that's immune to these times. So to me, it's like you have to put things in perspective. So it sounds corny, but you have to find a way to express gratitude for what you do have. Right. So a lot of people lost their jobs and income and turmoil and division. But you got to find things, at least 3 things every day that you're thankful for. You could be your health, your family, your faith, your abilities. I think that's one of the things you have to do. And I think that you get introspective and you got to find things to be thankful for every day. Otherwise, you find it to be hopeless. And you have to you have to put your physiology at a time that you felt great and really focus on that, whether it be a meditation or visualization on that. And you got to say that's going to come around again at some point. And I know it sounds corny and a woo or hoity, or whatever, right? But I think that, there's so much that goes into your physiologically, your spirit, your mind, your physical, you have to tie those in. So you got to get your body feeling good. Do some push-ups, stretch, yoga, meditation, whatever it is. Even if it's for a few minutes, visualize on good things. Think about what you're thankful for. Express your gratitude. You change your body, you start to change the way you think.
I love this. I know we have to start wrapping up soon, so I'm going to ask the last question, but what is one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
I think, look, one of the things that I'm dead set on, and I'm an advocate of, is writing things down, writing your goals down. Long ago, when my original group quit, I was working as a security guard, auditioning people, wondering if I was ever going to be able to make it. And I read a book by Tony Robbins, and he said, write your goals down. And I wrote all these goals down. And I had no hope. I had no group. I had no manager. I was in LA with millions of people trying to do the same thing. I wrote all these goals down, and they were lofty goals and very descriptive goals. And years later, I look back at the list, and every single one of them came true. So, and you can read book after book after book about writing down your goals. It's the exercise of doing it that people get bored with, and then they start to go, this is crazy. I don't do it anyway. Write your goals down, make them lofty, put time frames on all of them, and then, focus, visualize on them, take action to make them come true, and then ultimately they probably will.
Thank you for saying that. I love hearing that story too, because some people that are in that stuck moment right now are going, wait, before he did this, he wrote all his goals down. That's really good to know, not just now after you've already had success. So thank you so much. Where can we find you online and follow you and get all the good stuff?
Yeah, just search at Jeff Timmons on all the socials. I think my Facebook's like official Jeff Timmons. I'm on there. I'm very active with my fans, always interested in hearing what people have to say, their opinions about stuff, always interested in being hands-on with the fans and discussing life with them. Love our fans. Thank you for having me, Jamie. I appreciate it. Congrats to you and all your success. I appreciate your time and so grateful I could be on your platform today.
Thank you so much. Everyone, check out his TikTok dance. It's really, really good. All right. Thanks so much, Jeff, for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Take care.
If you enjoy this show, I would really appreciate your wonderful words of feedback. Go leave me a review. I would love a rating, whatever you can do in the time that you've got. I would so appreciate it.